I caught my HOA president crouched by my breaker box at 6 a.m., a power drill whining like a mosquito in my ear, unbolting my electric meter like it belonged to her. Not the city. Not me. 10 minutes later, the meter rode off in the trunk of her Lexus, and my house went dead. No AC, no fridge, hum, no Wi-Fi, just hot air, and the kind of silence that makes you grind your teeth. That was when it clicked that this wasn't just bossy neighbor nonsense. It was a power trip with a drill, and if I didn't draw a line, it would only get worse. My name is Ethan Cole, and I moved to Maple Ridge because it looked like the kind of Arizona neighborhood where Saturdays sound like sprinklers and porch coffee, and maybe a golden retriever complaining at a squirrel, not gavel taps and violation notes, and a grown adult talking to you like you're a teenager who missed curfew. I keep my yard tight. I wave at the mailbox. I pay my dues like everyone else. And for a while, I tried to play along with the letters about porch light, color temperature, and the ceramic gnome my nephew gave me. Yeah, I moved the gnome to the backyard. I swapped the bulbs. I even parked my pickup nose in, like it suddenly got shorter. But people like Karen Whitfield don't want compliance. They want proof they can make you bend. That morning, I hear the whine. I part the blinds, and there she is. Khaki capris visor. Gloved, crouched by my panel, with this raccoon energy, and where the round glass meter should be, there's just a blank metal mouth. I step outside barefoot with my coffee, my voice already steady, because disbelief will do that to you. And I say, Karen, that's utility property. You can't take it. She drops the meter into her trunk, slams it with guilty teenager speed, and turns with her chin high, like she's posing for a calendar called local authority. This is HOA enforcement, she says. You're using way above average. We have to investigate. Consider your power cut off until the board reviews it. I ask what board, the one that meets at your kitchen island, or the one that files paperwork with the city, and she gives me that tight smile people give when they don't intend to answer. You can contest it next meeting. Then she leaves like she borrowed a folding chair, not a meter tied to city code and public safety. By noon, my place is a tomb. The thermostat a dead grin, and I'm sitting at the kitchen table with melting ice water, thinking about how quickly someone can upend your life if you let them. I call Brookdale Electric and explain the whole circus, and the tech on the line goes quiet in that way, where you can tell he's covering the receiver and telling his coworker, "You gotta hear this." She what he says. She removed the entire meter, I say, with a power drill. She's the HOA president. He exhales slow. Tampering with a meter is serious. We're sending a crew. A white utility truck pulls up. Two guys hop out with tool bags and sunburned competence, and the lead tech. Frank Miller stares at the blank socket and whistles low. In 15 years, he says, I've never seen anyone do this. You don't touch these. It's safety. It's city ordinance. It's liability. They photograph everything swap. In a new meter, call their manager from my driveway, and I hear words like evidence and regulatory and report. Frank hands me the phone, and the manager tells me to file an official complaint so it can fast-track through the city. Which I do common in that way. Anger turns when it hardens into a plan. I start an evidence folder on my laptop, dates, times, photos, exact words, and make myself a promise from here on. Everything goes on paper. A glossy HOA newsletter lands in our mailboxes a week later, with Karen's name up top and a headline that reads, Protecting Property Values. Clearing up misinformation and I about choke on my coffee. Because she calls the theft a temporary safety measure, and paints me as a pattern of non-compliance, like my biggest sin is owning a refrigerator that works. The clubhouse meeting that night is packed. People standing in the back. Karen tapping a little gavel like it's an instrument only she knows how to play. Running through lawn heights and trash can. Timing until Mr. Arthur Davis, who never speaks above a whisper, stands and asks, "Madam President, did you or did you not remove Ethan's electric meter from his home?" You can feel the air freeze. Karen grips the gavel and says it's not relevant. We're discussing community upkeep, and Mr. Davis does this rare thing where he raises his voice. It's relevant if you stole city equipment, and a couple folks clap before they remember where they are. Brenda Hall, who's on the board, says she wasn't consulted, and neither were the others. And the murmuring gets loud enough that Karen bangs the gavel like she can beat the noise back into our throats. Out of order, she snaps, but her authority is already wobbling on its heels. 2 mornings later, a bright orange violation is taped to my door. Unsightly electrical equipment. And the unsightly item is the meter the city just installed, which would be funny if it wasn't so obviously retaliatory. I take photos, attach the utility work order, send it to the city contact. And the next day, Angela Torres from Electrical Safety walks the property with steady eyes clicking photos like a metronome. She reads the notice, looks at the panel, shakes her head, says, "This isn't enforcement, it's harassment," and adds it to the file like she's seen this movie before. Karen tries a new angle and calls the city on me, so a code inspector shows up. Apologetics says there's an anonymous complaint about improper electrical modifications and maybe illegal equipment, and I walk him through the attic garage panel the whole tour, and he laughs under his breath. Everything here is standard. Whoever filed this is wasting everyone's time. He doesn't say her name. He doesn't need to. Then the hammer drops. A fat envelope on Karen's door, photographed and texted around the cul-de-sac. In 30 seconds, a civil penalty for utility. Tampering for $25,000, the kind of number that takes your breath even if it isn't yours. A neighbor says they saw her open it and go pale, then angry, then that shaky white you get when pride drains faster than blood. And by sunset, there's an email blast from her about government overreach and clerical errors, like rules only count when she writes them. The next week, she calls an emergency meeting to raise dues $200 for a legal defense fund, and Brenda stands up arms folded and says, "You can't make us pay for your mistake," and the room erupts with no and absolutely not and recall, and Karen bangs her gavel and shouts loyalty while people file out. And it's the first time I see a bully lose the room on pure gravity. Retaliation gets sloppy after that. I find my breaker box hanging open screws in the gravel, so I call the police and the utility, and they come out and document and leave her with a formal warning. And Frank the tech gives me that exhausted half smile and says, "Keep documenting. She's building your case for you." Neighbors start choosing sides with their feet. Mrs. Patel tells me Karen tried to get her to sign a petition to remove me for inciting division, and she told her, "No, we're tired." Mr. Davis sits in a lawn chair, like a porch sentinel, and handmade vote her out. Signs bloom in yards, while Karen's own signs about protecting property values look lonely and kind of sad. Then, one morning, the clubhouse looks like chaos camped there for the night. Orange spray paint across the walls, slurs and accusations. The pool full of trash bags, the court fence cut the power switch thrown at the exterior panel, and the city takes photos and baggies and promises to review cameras, while Karen performs outrage like a bad actress, and you can tell the neighborhood is done pretending. The final swing comes on a humid night, when the street smells like dust and cut grass, and my house goes dark, in that instant way. You don't confuse with a neighborhood outage, and I step outside and the meter is gone again, and across the street she's in her driveway holding it with both hands like a trophy. Hair wild, eyes bright, and she shouts, "You don't belong here!" This neighborhood is mine, and phones go up all along the block. And I don't shout back. I call 911 and tell the dispatcher I'm reporting an active theft of utility equipment by my HOA president. And the cruisers roll in quick blue washing over stucco. And 2 officers approach with that calm weight that says, "This conversation ends now." "Ma'am, put the equipment down," one says, and she clutches it tighter and says, "This is enforcement." And the other steps in, and they pry it loose and set it on the curb like glass, and turn her around, and the cuffs click a small sound that rings like a bell when a street is holding its breath. And someone whispers, "Oh my God." And someone else records, and nobody cheers because sometimes justice doesn't look like fireworks. It looks like a refrigerator. Humming again when the utility truck pulls up, and Frank lifts the meter and says, "We'll get you back on," and an hour later, cold air moves through the vents, and it feels like oxygen. Relief doesn't taste like victory cake. It tastes like tap water on your own porch when the cicadas get loud again, and the neighbors stand in quiet clusters and talk in low voices, and Mr. Davis pats my shoulder and says, "Took long enough," and I laugh because he's right. And also because I'm tired. Not the kind of tired that sends you to bed, the kind that makes you sit very still and listen to your home like it's a living thing you almost lost. People ask why I didn't just sell and start over. And sometimes I wonder that too, but here's the truth I learned in the heat of it. The rules aren't the enemy. It's what happens when someone decides the rules live inside them, when a title becomes a costume, when enforcement turns into control, and you either bow to it or you document and push back and trust the boring machinery of due process to do what it does. You know what I mean? Yeah, that happened. I'm not going to pretend I didn't picture a block party the next day with hot dogs and string lights just to prove a point. But I didn't want a parade. I wanted the quiet. I was promised, and when the officers lifted that meter from her hands and set it down like evidence and not a crown, I realized that little hum in the kitchen is what peace sounds like. Not flashy, not loud, just steady. And I slept like a person who knows the lights will stay on. Maybe you think I escalated by refusing to shrink. Maybe you think HOAs keep neighborhoods clean. Or maybe you've watched them turn into stages for people who love rules a little too much. Maybe you'd have moved. Maybe you'd have knocked on her door with a plate of cookies and a prayer. Maybe you'd have grabbed the drill, and things would have gone very differently. I'm not here to tell you what you should believe. I'm here to tell you how it felt when a woman with a title tried to shut off my life, and the real rules showed up and reminded all of us that titles are not law. So tell me in the comments where the line is. When does keeping order become bullying? When is it right to document and push back? What would you have done the minute you saw someone with a drill at your meter? And if you've lived a version of this story, drop it below so the rest of us can read it.